Good day everyone, this is your European Open briefing for Tuesday, October the 18th. I'm Rafi Boyajian, currency analyst at XM.com. Then we're going to be looking at what's happening in the currency markets today. So the main movers today are the Australian and New Zealand dollars. Commodities have been boosted by a slightly weaker dollar, so both oil and gold are firmer today. So this has also benefited the commodity currencies. The New Zealand dollar had some additional support from stronger than expected inflation data out of New Zealand today. The Aussie, on the other hand, appeared to shrug off slightly more dovish than expected minutes from out of the RBA. We saw the publication of RBA's October meeting minutes that pointed to the possibility of future cuts. The dollar, on the other hand, has come off 7 months highs, although it's holding fairly steady, not too far from those highs, as it was supported by comments by Fed Vice Chair Stanley Fischer, who said that the Fed is very close to achieving its targets. So against the yen, we can see the dollar has reclaimed the 104 level. Earlier today, Fed Vice Chair Stanley Fischer said we are very close to our targets. So this again reaffirms expectations that the Fed will likely raise interest rates in December, although Fischer was somewhat cautious against how far rates would go up. So once again, we have this uncertainty as to how quickly the Fed will tighten going forward. We also had some mixed data out of the US yesterday. Industrial output data was fairly positive. US output was up 0.1% in September, and the manufacturing subcomponent performed even better. Expectations were for that manufacturing output would stay unchanged in September, but it was up 0.2%. Although we had some negative New York manufacturing survey data that suggested that manufacturing activity in New York State was down sharply in October. Coming up later in the day, we've got the US inflation data, so that's going to be the main focus for the dollar for the rest of the day. Let's have a quick look at the euro and the pound, because we can see here both currencies have rebounded from yesterday's lows against the dollar. The euro is back above $1.10. The main focus for the euro is Thursday's ECB policy meeting, where analysts are expecting some kind of a signal from the ECB that they will extend the asset purchase program beyond March 2017. The pound, on the other hand, is up back about $1.22. It was around $1.2244 not a few minutes ago. The main focus for the pound is today's inflation data, and then of course tomorrow we've got unemployment data, and on Thursday retail sales. So it's going to be the pound is likely to remain in focus for the remainder of the week. Now moving on to the Australian dollar, we can see the Aussie is up almost 0.8%. It reached a 2-week high of 0.7686. This comes despite the RBA keeping the possibility open of further cuts. The main thing that the RBA is looking at is the quarterly inflation data, which will be available before the November 1st meeting, when the RBA is next due to meet. The RBA is also concerned about the labour and the housing market, so any signs of weakness in the employment, housing or inflation data, that could possibly lead to another rate cut before the end of the year, although most analysts do not expect another rate cut until the middle of next year. The new RBA governor, Philip Lowe, did speak earlier today, and he did say he was worried about inflation expectations being too low. At the moment, they're not too concerned about the current levels of inflation expectations, but if they do decline further, it could again lead to more monetary policy easing. The New Zealand dollar is one of the best performance today. It's up almost 1% against the US dollar. It reached a 1.5-week high of just under 0.72 against the US dollar. We had some slightly stronger than expected inflation data out of New Zealand. CPI in the third quarter was up 0.2% year on year, and this compares with estimates of 0.1%. And this, we can see here that this big jump in the Kiwi right after the data, it kind of dampens expectations that the RBNZ would go ahead with more aggressive monetary easing, although markets still expect the RBNZ will go ahead and cut rates in November, but maybe it kind of it's less likely that it would follow a more aggressive approach. Also to look out for the Kiwi later in the day, we've got the bi-weekly dairy auction. So it's a fairly good day for commodities. And another commodity currency doing well today is the Canadian dollar. We can see that it's currently at a 2-week high of 1.3065. Both gold and oil are going up today. Gold has recovered back above $1,260 an ounce. Oil, on the other hand, has been boosted by slightly changing outlook that perhaps the oil market isn't as badly the oversupply in the oil market isn't as bad as initially had been thought. This is due to, as we approach the winter months, global inventories are rising much more slowly than expected. So this has led to some analysts to rethink their outlook, that perhaps the oil market is closer to balancing out than expected, and this has pushed the oil prices back about $50 a barrel. Now let's have a look at today's calendar. We can see earlier today we had the New Zealand inflation data. Coming up shortly, we've got UK inflation data. Headline inflation is expected to rise from 0.6% in August to 0.9% in September. We're also going to have US inflation data later in the US session, where headline inflation is expected to rise from 1.1 to 1.5%, though core inflation is expected to hold steady at 2.3%. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.